Dairy! Is it good? Is it bad? We'll find out today! Here on the Lift to Enlightenment channel. So today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, dairy. So there's a lot of confusion out there between whether you're in the paleo community, the vegan community, vegetarian community, raw food dieters. There's both nutritional and ethical arguments for using or not using or consuming dairy products. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to break that down, and we're going to look at the effect that dairy has on the body, what's in dairy anyway, so that we can make our own decision. So one of the biggest arguments I've heard against consuming dairy is that it's not natural. People say, oh, humans are the only species on the planet to consume the food meant for the babies of a completely other species. That may be true, and there's definitely some validity to that argument, but you also have to consider the fact that there's a lot of other quite impressive things humans have been able to do, and it's because of the power of our minds. So the fact that one of the most nutritional substances that we have, that we know of for humans on Earth, is mother's milk, there may be something to the fact that there's actually some nutritional value in the milk from a mother of a slightly different species. Although we don't look too much like cows, we actually share the majority of our DNA with them. So let's get into what actually is in milk. So one of the biggest things I would say in terms of availability to the body is the fat-soluble vitamins that you find in dairy. So those include A, D, E, and K. We won't get too much into the chemistry behind each of those vitamins, but they each do have an important effect in the body. So A is a powerful antioxidant that specifically benefits your eye health, both protecting your eyes from damage from the sun and other unnatural light sources, in addition to just improving your vision overall as you age. So vitamin E is also an antioxidant, which has a lot of different effects in the body, most known for skin health. D, you've probably heard about. Vitamin D obviously comes from the sun as the main source, but you can actually take it orally as well and get quite a lot of the benefits. Especially during the winter months when you can't get sun, vitamin D is really nice for your mood, for your immune system, for your energy levels, and for your hormone levels. My favorite of the fat-soluble vitamins is actually vitamin K2, which is also found in dairy. So what vitamin K2 is it helps your body regulate its distribution of calcium. So what that means is no matter what your diet is, you have some level of calcium that's necessary to maintain bone structure, also used as an ion in muscular contraction inside muscle cells. But too much of calcium, and especially the wrong type of calcium, your body doesn't really know what to do with it. So it starts accumulating in strange places like the heart, inside the arteries, and especially in the most magnetic part of your body, right here, your pineal gland, also sometimes called the third eye. If you're interested in learning more about that, check out one of my upcoming videos. It's going to be called Pineal Power. So in addition to those fat-soluble vitamins, sometimes, depending on the source you get it from, there might also be a chemical called colostrum in milk. You may have heard of this. This is released by mothers, all mammal mothers, in the first half a day or so of after childbirth when they start producing dairy. So this has a lot of immune system boosting factors, and this is kind of think of it as a blueprint for your immune system that can stay with you for your entire life. It's also loaded with growth factors. It helps protect you against disease, and it really is something that stays with you for a long time. It's a really, really nice thing to get because most of us only had exposure to that if we were nursed as children for maybe the first day or so. Another thing that's in dairy that you might be surprised to hear about is omega-3s. I'm sure you've heard of those. That's the big reason that a lot of people are really into taking fish oil. So you might think, fish I know are high in omega-3s, but I thought that was the only source I could get that from. That's actually incorrect. So what happens is, if you're familiar with a cow's digestive system, they only eat one thing all day. And so they're consuming grass, and there's a ton of vitamin K in there. Essentially, they're eating salad all day long. And there are some benefits to that, but it's really hard to create the necessary type of proteins and the right type of fatty acids and balancing your minerals when you only have one thing in your diet. So the reason that cows, you may have heard they have multiple stomachs and they regurgitate their food and swallow it again. The reason is because their different stages of their digestive system are actually contain different types of bacteria which ferment the foods that they eat at different times and produce different nutrients. And so they take the vitamin K, just K1, that's stored in the greens that they're eating, and they can actually ferment them and turn them into K2. And so what the cow's body does after that is it takes all those fat-soluble nutrients, and not only does it store it in its own body fat, but it concentrates them into milk, because when cows reproduce, obviously their babies need the best nutrition they can get. And so for cows, that's milk. You guessed it, just like humans. So taking dairy regularly, as long as the sourcing is optimal, which we'll get to in a second, definitely has a lot of benefits for the body. So let's get to sourcing. So one of the biggest messages that I want to share with you guys is that the question of is a food healthy or not is a hasty request, and people kind of tend to want an easy answer. You know, is coffee good? Is bacon good? Is butter good? Can I put butter in my coffee? Can I use certain types of dairy? Are other types okay? What's the answer here? I want to know. And unfortunately, it's not that simple, but at the same time, it's very simple. And so this all comes down to sourcing. No food is really objectively good or bad because that food is made out of whatever it consumed. So for example, we're talking about dairy here. So naturally, in the wild, cows and other cattle-like species consume almost exclusively wild grasses. Dark, green, healthy, rich grasses growing in mineral-dense soil and open pasture. They're exposed to sun. They have free range to move, and they're not in a stressed-out situation from being cramped in with other cows and other unnatural conditions. So that's the optimal source. So you're going to get those A, D, E, K, omega-3s. You're going to get those concentrations in the dairy that is grass-fed. The problem is when you go to the grocery store and you go down the dairy aisle and you're looking at your butter and cream and milk and you're like, oh, this is organic. This is probably good. Organic's probably a better choice, but if it wasn't fed grass, not only are you not going to get anywhere near the concentrations of those nutrients that you're looking for that you would get from the grass-fed dairy, but you're also getting a lot of unhealthy nutrients in there too. I guess I can't really call them nutrients, but most industrial cattle these days is not fed grass. It's fed genetically modified soy. It's fed genetically modified corn. Those fields are sprayed with a pesticide called glyphosate, which is really, really toxic to the nervous system. So if you're going to consume dairy, it's really important that you find a good source. And that goes for any food. So don't ever think something is all good or all bad or I can never touch that again. You got to find out, you got to go a little deeper. What did that food eat? What did that food pull out of the soil? How was that food treated? And that's going to determine the health value of that particular food. So, benefits. In addition to all of those nutrients that you'll be getting, a lot of people are wondering whether they can use milk or any dairy products effectively for nutrition and fitness specifically, and trying to gain muscle mass. Will they be able to stay lean? Is it keto approved? So my take on that is this. The Russians are usually pretty crazy and kind of cutting edge when it comes to fitness and stuff, and they might have invented something you've heard as the GOMAD diet. GOMAD stands for gallon of milk a day. So many of you probably, that sounds ridiculous. How could you consume a gallon of milk a day? Especially a high-fat milk is going to be probably over 2,000 calories. And so I've never tried this myself. I would not necessarily recommend it for a couple reasons. One, milk, whether it's grass-fed or not, whether it's organic or not, is fairly high in lactose, which is a sugar. Little bits of that are definitely okay, but if you're consuming a gallon of that a day, you're hitting your digestive system really hard with sugars all day long, and eventually that could tax your pancreas a little bit. And I'm not saying you're going to get diabetes from drinking milk, but if you're going to drink a gallon a day, I wouldn't recommend doing this long term, but it can definitely be effective for packing on some muscle. There's quite a bit of fats, quite a bit of nutrients, growth factors, healthy proteins. It's all there. When it comes to actual pure fat sources, dairy, cream, and even cheese. Cheese is surprising because it's actually a probiotic food. A lot of people don't know that. Cheese is you take the fat from dairy and it's fermented with microorganisms that digest those proteins, make them more bioavailable, and also when you consume them, they help you digest your other food by producing enzymes that help you more easily assimilate other nutrients. So as long as, though, again, if those are grass-fed, and I should also add the fact that a lot of the dairy you get from the store is not only not fed the nicest things, but it's also pasteurized. So many years ago, a scientist named Louis Pasteur invented this process where you take dairy and you put it over, you expose it to a heat. Basically, it's heat shocked. So you heat it up just long enough to denature all the proteins, all the benefits. Of course, the idea of it was to kill the bacteria, but although that can be a problem, overall, your immune system is going to be able to handle bacteria from especially locally raised, organic, free-range, grass-fed dairy. So the pasteurization product takes a really beautiful food and bleaches it into something that's not only really confusing to the body, we don't know how to break down cooked milk. You don't find that in nature, and our digestive systems don't really know what to do with it. So it can lead to inflammation, plus you lose all the vital nutrients. So if you're going to consume dairy, sourcing is really, really important. In terms of the ketogenic diet, butter and cream and cheese as well are fairly low in carbohydrates because they separate the fat. The cream that floats to the top is turned into the butter and also the cheese. So the carbohydrates, the lactose specifically, are left in the watery part of the milk, and that's filtered out when it's made those. So if you're trying to stay ketogenic, you're trying to lower your carbohydrates, you want to stick with the more dense fatty sources of dairy rather than the milk itself. So I hope this helps you guys. I hope you can make a decision for yourself about whether dairy would be right for you. If you have any questions, please just send me a message or an email, and I can try to clear that up for you. I really hope you guys like this. I like to keep doing these, so I appreciate some feedback. Subscribe to my channel, and have a nice day.